Excellencies, Global Compact participants, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Sando Giambo, and I'm the Assistant Secretary General and CEO of the United Nations Global Compact. It is a sincere pleasure to greet you all today at the China plenary session of the Leaders Summit. I still remember fondly my first visit to China when I was a student more than 20 years ago, and I'm amazed by the tremendous progress continuously made by China. To date, the country has successfully lifted over 800 million of its people out of extreme poverty, contributing to nearly 3/4 of the global poverty reduction. China, which is the fastest growing market for the UN Global Compact in the Asia-Pacific region, has seen a rapidly growing number of companies stepping up to address regional and global challenges. These companies understand that responsible business practice is not only good for the country, but it's also good for business. Chinese companies have entrusted the UN Global Compact, which is the world's largest corporate sustainability initiative, to work hand in hand with them to advance their sustainability journey. This includes engagement around critical issues such as climate change, gender equality, decent work in supply chains, sustainable infrastructure, and sustainable investments. And as China's economy transforms towards a low-carbon path, the United Nations must unlock this historical opportunity to support the alignment of China's development trajectory with the Sustainable Development Goals. The private sector in China can certainly play a critical role through innovation and partnership in order to help ensure these historic transformations not only benefit China, but also maximize their impact around the world. The Sustainable Development Goals cannot be achieved without China and the engagement of Chinese companies as well. Toward that end, I'm happy to announce that the UN Global Compact will launch our China strategy today. The strategy aims to accelerate and scale the collective impact of the private sector in China to drive progress towards the Sustainable Development Goals. In this strategy, we have clearly defined our priorities and mechanisms to engage key players. We have committed to executing a clear roadmap that maximizes impact through long-term investment and constructive collaboration. We know that China's development path is closely linked with other countries, including infrastructure investments through the Belt and Road Initiative, digital transformation through technology and innovation, a low-carbon energy development path, good education and quality jobs for the next generation, and a just and equitable transition for a net-zero future. And all of the above are fundamental for the achievement of the Sustainable Development Goals. In this common pursuit, the UN Secretary General applauds Chinese President Xi Jinping's announcement of the Global Development Initiative, which is deeply aligned to the Sustainable Development Goals. At the UN Global Compact, we stand ready to collaborate and support, helping the private sector to fully align with recognized international norms and standards embedded in the 10 principles of the UN Global Compact. I'd like to take this opportunity to sincerely thank our board member, Mr. Ren Hongbin, the Vice Chairman of SASAC for China, for his support along this journey. Ladies and gentlemen, as we launch this strategy, I look forward to working closely with you to realize the SDGs, strengthen our businesses, and unite business for a better China and a better world. I wish you a fruitful session today. 谢谢。
尊敬的奥家博总干事、任鸿斌副主任、马可行长，各位同事，很高兴参加全球契约可持续发展领导人峰会。当前，新冠肺炎疫情持续蔓延，地区政治冲突加剧，世界经济复苏分化失衡，气候变化、生物多样性丧失、不平等加剧等问题突出，落实2030年议程面临严峻挑战。全球契约作为全球最大的企业可持续发展倡议，应充分发挥自身独特优势，加强对会员国企业指导，打造更强有力的公司伙伴关系，推动国际社会加快落实2030年议程。一要团结抗击疫情，促进疫后复苏。全球契约应发挥地方网络等资源优势， 推动企业积极开展疫苗生产、研发、分配等国际合作，共筑多重抗疫防线，助力各国的疫后复苏，推动建设人类卫生健康共同体。二要坚持发展优先，重振世界经济。疫情凸显了减贫、粮食安全、数字经济、基础设施建设等发展领域的重要性和紧迫性。全球契约应鼓励企业加大对上述重点领域的投资，着力解决各国发展不平衡、不充分问题，同时发挥跨国企业重要作用，维护全球产业链供应链的稳定畅通，推动世界经济重回复苏正轨。三要加大科技创新，推动绿色发展。全球企业应把握新一轮科技革命和产业变革的机遇，大力推动科技创新，深化交流合作。要积极推进环境友好型技术开发应用，加快数字化和绿色低碳转型，打造未来发展的新优势。四要坚持价值导向，履行社会责任。全球契约应充分动员企业资源，积极投身全球发展事业。要坚决反对一切形式的单边主义和贸易保护主义，推动建立公开、公平和非歧视国际贸易体制。在开展商业活动的同时，应积极承担社会责任，履行环境保护等义务，注重回馈社会，提升民众福祉。各位同事，多年来，中国企业一直积极参与国际合作，在实现自身发展的同时，主动融入当地社会，践行社会责任，为当地实现可持续发展做出积极的贡献。新冠疫情以来，在中国政府指导下，中国企业已同19个国家开展疫苗联合生产，初步形成超过10亿剂的年产能，践行让疫苗成为全球公共产品的承诺。中方将持续打造市场化、法治化、国际化营商环境，推动高质量共建“一带一路”，通过双边、三方和多边合作，打造更多高质量项目，为全球工商界提供更多市场机遇、投资机遇和增长机遇。去年9月，习近平主席在第76届联大一般性辩论上郑重提出全球发展倡议，旨在呼吁国际社会携手应对挑战，加快落实2030年议程，推动实现更加强劲、绿色、健康的全球发展。今年初，中国常驻联合国代表团在纽约发起成立全球发展倡议之友小组。不久前，小组成功举行高级别视频会议，受到各方广泛关注。小组成员目前已经达到55个。我们欢迎全球契约和所有会员企业参与全球发展倡议的进程，就倡议落实建言献策，围绕重点领域开展务实合作，为全球发展事业注入新动力。中方愿继续同全球契约加强交流合作，期待会员企业不断提升参与落实2030年议程的雄心水平和行动力度，让我们一道为全球复苏和可持续发展做出更大的贡献。谢谢大家。
Excellencies, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, it is a great pleasure for me to address the UN Global Compact Leaders Summit this year. The world today faces unprecedented challenges affecting the health and the well-being of both our humanity and our planet. Countries and businesses continue to tackle the COVID-19 crisis that has adversely affected both people and economy. I have been in Shanghai these days and experienced significant progress owing to the dynamic zero-COVID policy and the unity of our government, businesses, and people. The enterprises, especially those central state-owned enterprises, have stepped forward and shouldered their social responsibility. Across sectors, they have worked together and taken actions at the front lines to support city and its citizens, ensuring that no one is left behind, which is the shared spirit rooted in the Sustainable Development Goals. The pandemic has provoked many societal problems worldwide. It has been a timely reminder to all of us on the importance of building back better and together. Secretary General Guterres has warned us, I quote, "Global solidarity is missing in action," end of quote. It should be realized that the next decade will be a critical period for the entire global community to collectively address challenges and raise our ambition on sustainable development. Last September, Chinese President Xi Jinping proposed the Global Development Initiative at the UN General Assembly and called on the international community to galvanize attention to development, strengthen global development partnership, promote international development cooperation, and lend fresh impetus to the realization of the 2030 SDGs. I believe the initiative has set out a blueprint for countries to achieve common development. Enterprises can play an important role in facilitating sustainable, inclusive, and just transition towards this shared global development vision. The State-Owned Assets Supervision and Administration Commission of the State Council of PRC has long been promoting responsible business practices. We are committed to facilitating SOEs to innovate and collaborate under the Global Development Initiative, exploring ways towards a shared sustainable future in partnership with stakeholders all over the world. One notable action we have taken recently toward this goal was the establishment of the Bureau of Social Responsibility as part of our commission. This bureau will strive to reinforce our capacity to guide and support SOEs to achieve carbon neutrality, elevate their environmental, social, and governance performance, and foster inclusive, sustainable, and high-quality development. In the coming months, we are going to partner with the UN Global Compact to launch a capacity building program and will train senior executives of SOEs on the universal principles of Global Compact and 2030 Agenda on sustainable development. Such efforts will help maximize positive impact from our enterprises to society at home and abroad. As a board member of UN Global Compact, I am happy to witness today's launch of UN Global Compact's China strategy. It is a clear roadmap led by Ms. Sanda Ojembo to support China's development priorities and mobilize enterprises and stakeholders from China to positively contribute to the world. With my full support to this strategy, I also want to applaud the significant progress made by UN Global Compact's Action Platform on Sustainable Infrastructure for the Belt and Road Initiative to accelerate the SDGs. As a member of the Action Platform's high-level steering committee, I look forward to working closely with partners and friends through the Action Platform. Jointly, we can make constructive contributions to facilitate the BRI to be a global public goods for sustainable development to benefit all. Colleagues and friends, no matter where you are from, what color your skin is, or what language you speak, we are all part of a global family nested in a community of common destiny for mankind. In face of conflict, climate change, pandemic, inequality, and many other global crises, we must work together and unite in solidarity. As we convene at this Leaders Summit, I would like to invite you to demonstrate your leadership with compassion, collaboration, and action. Darkness can never shroud the light of dawn. Together, we will overcome the challenges of today and embrace a hopeful and better tomorrow. Thank you for your attention and wish the summit a great success.
Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the UN Global Compact Leaders Summit, China Town Hall. We are at a discussion session with the topic on leaders' insights, collaborate for the SDGs during the time of crisis. I have the pleasure to be joined by a highly diverse and gender-balanced panel. So please join me in welcoming the representatives from the international organization, Ms. Stahars Chatterjee, UN Resident Coordinator in China. Leaders from the private sector companies, Marjorie Yang, Chairwoman of ASCO Group, Jane Sun, CEO of Trip.com Group, Pullman Low, Vice Chairman and Managing Director of Regal Hotels International, and leaders from business associations, Mr. Fang Qiuchen, President of China International Contractors Association, and last but not least, representative from leading think tanks and civil society organizations from China, including Professor Victor Gao, Vice President, Center for China and Globalization, and Jason Ho, founder of the Beyond Expo. So welcome all our speakers. Here is your moderator for this panel, Meng Liu from UN Global Compact here in China. So I still remember a couple of months ago when the UN Secretary General visited China to attend the Beijing Winter Olympics. In his meeting with all the UN agency heads here in Beijing, and he, in fact, has deeply expressed concern over growing divide between the East and the West, and between global North and global South. So in the middle of the global crisis, including climate, pandemic, conflict, food, energy, you name it. So I was wondering, Sid, what role you think the United Nations can play in bridging this divide and making sure that all the countries and all the stakeholders, we can unite together towards one shared goal, which is the Sustainable Development Goals. So Sid, over to you.
Thank you, Meng. And I'm delighted to meet the rest of the panelists. But first of all, I think, we are perhaps at an inflection point in history. As we mentioned, our Secretary General, Mr. Antonio Guterres, stresses in his recent message to the group of friends of the Global Development Initiative for accelerating the implementation of the 2030 agenda. And I quote, he says, "We are fast approaching the midpoint of the time available to reach the Sustainable Development Goals. End of quote. But progress is in peril. Since COVID-19, a fragile and uneven global economic recovery, climate change, and conflicts are pushing our goals further out of reach. And it is time to rescue the SDGs and give the Sustainable Development Goals a fighting chance. Colleagues, we know that we just have 8 years left to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals. And with the COVID pandemic, we are reversing the global progress towards the 2030 agenda, combined with the threats of a climate crisis, widening inequalities, increasing conflicts, skyrocketing prices of food, energy, and fertilizers. And the UN system always welcomes initiatives by any member state that marshals ideas, capacities, and resources in support of the SDGs. And on that count, I commend the Chinese government's efforts around the Global Development Initiative. Now, just a few weeks ago, I was honored to meet with China's Foreign Minister, His Excellency Mr. Wang Yi, at a bilateral meeting. We discussed the China-UN partnership to accelerate the SDGs during a time of great volatility as we face the crisis of a health crisis with COVID, a climate emergency, conflicts, rising inequality. We also discussed the Global Development Initiative and its importance to accelerate global progress towards the SDGs and realizing the promise of the 2030 Agenda for the Sustainable Development. Now, as the UN Secretary General has emphasized, that discussions through the Global Development Initiative can help move the needle on development progress across all countries. And the role of the United Nations system will be to articulate how this initiative can accelerate global progress in achieving the goals and ensure that it complies with international norms and standards. And that is a commitment I made to the foreign minister, saying, I am going to marshal the entire intellectual capacity of the entire UN family here in China, not just in China, but globally, in order to make sure that China's GDI stands out as a global best practice. Now, apart from partnering with member states to deliver on the promise of a prosperous and peaceful future, the UN system is also finding new ways of working together and leveraging partnerships that make most of the expertise, technology, and resources that are available for sustainable and inclusive growth. We must harness the convening power of the United Nations through platforms where stakeholders can meaningfully engage, build trust, exchange know-how and technologies, strengthen relationships, and bring synergy and coherence to achieve results. So therefore, the UN Global Compact's action platform on sustainable infrastructure for Belt and Road Initiative to accelerate the SDGs, which was officially launched on the UN Global Compact Leaders Summit in 2020, is exactly an example of such multi-stakeholder engagement that can bring together and leverage public-private partnerships, expertise, resources to accelerate the SDGs through sustainable infrastructure. And we are happy to see that since the inception of this platform in 2020, it has already delivered 2 white papers in resilient health infrastructure and in the corporate net zero pathway, as well as healthcare projects such as the Eco Loo Box for All, which provides an innovative bio-toilet solution for people under poverty in BRI countries and the world's least developed regions for applying an affordable, replicable, and eco-friendly sanitation solution. Now, through action platforms such as these that forge public-private partnerships, we can jointly build the world we want, and around the theme of this Leaders Summit. So thank you very much for that very pertinent question. Over to you, Ma'am.
Thank you so much, Sid. And so thank you also for mentioning about UN Global Compact's action platform on sustainable infrastructure for the BRI to accelerate the SDGs. And in fact, this year marked the 2nd anniversary of this action platform. And we are looking forward to work closely with all the stakeholders across the world to make sure that it truly contributes to the SDGs. So I'm also happy to hear, Sid, you mentioned about a very important word, which is even more important than today, which is trust. And trust indeed is the basis and foundation for collaboration. But we all know that it seems that in this world that there are many differences of opinions and approach that's really based on very different historic and cultural traditions, social systems, and level of development, which is natural. So I wonder, Victor, whether you have any view on that. We see a lot of countries and stakeholders, they might disagree on some issues. So what's your advice to handle all these differences and really help build trust, which the ambassador mentioned earlier, in a very globalized but also highly divided world today?
Thank you, Man. It is a great pleasure and great honor for me to attend this very important seminar. I think in the world of today, trust is probably one of the most important rare asset that we all want to have, because without trust, you really cannot expect to improve and promote international cooperation and partnership. And I think all our efforts towards achieving the SDG goal probably will be futile. I think if we look at the world today, I agree with Sid, we are fast reaching an inflection point or a watershed moment. I think we want to make sure that peace prevails rather than war, rather than confrontation, rather than dividing the world into one block versus another or another several blocks, because all this will combine together not to help achieve the SDG goals, but to defeat all our efforts to achieve SDG goals. I hope the megatrend in our world today, despite of the war or military operations involving several countries, will still remain peace and development. I remember Deng Xiaoping said, development is the hard truth. I've added to that, I've called development not only as the hard truth, but the smart truth and the soft truth, because without development, you really cannot achieve all the goals you set for yourself, for your companies or institutions, or for your nation, or for mankind as a whole. And I think one reason why war or military conflicts are breaking out in that particular part of the world is probably because of lack of development and diversion of attention to other things, rather than marshaling all your efforts, devoting yourself to peace, to partnership, and to development with all, and try to be friends with none. I think this is the very important thing, because if we miss this most important watershed moment, if we allow the current crisis to further develop or even get out of control, then I'm afraid that all our efforts for SDG by year 2030 will be wasted and will be futile, and the world may really be plunged into greater and higher and deeper crisis, inflicting mortal wounds onto mankind as a whole. I think it is time for us really to rally behind the United Nations as the leader of the whole world and do whatever we can to promote multilateralism centered around the United Nations. In that sense, it is very dangerous to hear some leader calling for the possible disbanding of the United Nations or dissolution of the United Nations Security Council. This is the worst thing that can happen, because I think one of the greatest contributions by the United Nations since its founding in 1945 is the prevention of the outbreak of the Third World War. The world we are living in is not a perfect world. However, we thank to the United Nations for the great effort in really preventing the outbreak of a Third World War. And we are not at the brink of another Third World War, but we may not be too far away from that. And it requires all our wisdom and vision and resources and courage to make the right choice. And the choice is for peace, is to avert war. And if a war breaks out, we need to do whatever we can to promote a peaceful resolution or negotiated settlement of the conflict, rather than pouring more fuel onto the fire to lead to a greater conflagration or even eventually to Armageddon. I hope all of us, individuals, families, society at large, in institutions, companies of all kinds, countries, governments, and mankind and the whole world as a whole will make the right choice. I think our future generations will be grateful for the right thing that we are doing today, for choosing peace, for opposing war, and for trying our best, despite of all the difficulties, to promote peaceful settlement of all conflicts of all kinds, rather than instigating and pouring more fuel onto whatever conflict there is anywhere in the world. I do hope the world for tomorrow will be a better world, and it will be a world without war, without conflict, without confrontation, without war, cold or hot, and with peace. And peace will be warm and will be hot, and peace will enable all of us to enjoy ourselves and our future generations to live on happily for many generations to come. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Victor. Well, you are making this very powerful appeal. I was seeing that all the speakers are nodding. I'm sure the audiences who view this program will also agree. And you kind of reminded me that Buddha said, hatred is never ended by hatred, but by love. And similarly, I also personally believe disagreement is never resolved by any argument, but really by the art of diplomacy and the sympathetic desire to see the other person's or the other country or the other stakeholders' viewpoint. And I particularly am convinced that I think a woman is really good at it. And especially female business executive, maybe even better. So I was seeing that Margie, Jen, and Pullman was nodding and smiling. So let me ask you, Pullman, because I know that you are the first Asian woman who won a major award called Oslo Business for Peace. So how do you think business can make a positive contribution to peace? Pullman, over to you.
Thank you so much, Mo. So let's start with what we consider peace. To me, peace is a state of mind that is free from suffering, that is liberated from the mental poisons of attachment, hatred, and ignorance. And peace can only be possible when we appreciate the interconnectedness and interdependence of all, meaning that actually none of us exist independently on our own. And all events can only happen when certain causes and conditions converge. So, you know, the pandemic has really shaken each and every one of us in this world. And hopefully it will be a wake-up call for all, a reminder that all of us are interconnected and that we all live under one big sky. So, you know, really since COVID-19 hit us, there has been heightened concern for not just our own health and well-being, but also care for Mother Earth. So the pandemic is actually a form of collective suffering. And when the ego is inflated and we're preoccupied with selfish concerns and insatiable desires, we suffer. So what I feel is that there's a common denominator among all religions, and that is that happiness is only possible when we transcend above our selfish desires, and that, you know, purpose-driven life is the key to sustainable happiness. And likewise, purpose-driven business ventures are more sustainable and profitable. So when the focus is not just on maximizing short-term profit, but on alleviating suffering and promoting welfare for all, then we are more likely to be able to enjoy longer-term success through lasting win-win strategic partnerships that create mutual benefits and value for everyone, for our staff, for our customers, for business partners, for the whole world. So in the businesses that I lead, you know, we always try to embody the ethical and responsible principles and create shared value, not just for our business partners, but also for the greater community. So one example that I'd like to highlight is, you know, impact investments. And there are a few verticals that we focus on. For example, in agri-food tech technology companies, you know, in this world, poverty and hunger still remains a very critical UN SDG. and a significant challenge in many third world countries. The global population is set to rise to 8.5 billion, and the world is set to consume 60% more food by 2050. And there is obviously a close interrelationship between food and peace. Peace cannot be built on empty stomachs. So thankfully, with advances in alternative protein, cell-based meat, precision agri-tech solutions, vertical farming, etc., and also all the enabling technologies, all this can drive progress in promoting sustainable food production and also consumption patterns. Secondly, we also look at green tech. So there's renewable energy, carbon capture, green food tech, smart city, electronic vehicles. All of these can facilitate our transition to a net zero future. So while our nations all have man-made borders, all of us are again living in an interconnected state. We're all living under the same planet, facing the same existential crisis with climate change. So all countries must join forces to promote decarbonization and fight against this disastrous rise in temperatures. And thirdly, this is really the era of the digital economy. Blockchain, AI, immersive technologies will disrupt each and every facet of our life. DeFi, P2P platforms, virtual banking, Web3, and many other new payment gateways can democratize traditional finance and provide the unbanked with access to financial services. For example, in Southeast Asia, 74% of the adult population is either unbanked or underbanked. They're completely overlooked by traditional finance. So with fintech startups, we can empower financial inclusion. And actually, fintechs do account for 1 in every 5 unicorns. When given the opportunity to participate in the mainstream economy, the underprivileged youth will be less likely to engage in crime, in the black market, in illicit activities, or even terrorism. So I believe that, when we go alone, we can go quickly, but when we are together, we can actually go much further. And we're living in a very big world with lots of problems, with millions of beings suffering. So let us embark together on this journey to empower impact around the world and to foster a more sustainable future for all. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Pullman. And thank you also for giving a very vivid example on food. But in China, we have a saying, 衣食住行, and the first one also comes from yi, and I know clothing, that Margie, you are a major producer of clothing. And how do you embed the 10 principles of a global compact, the environmental, social, and governance into your business so that you contribute to a more harmonious workforce, a more greener environment, and a more sustainable future? So Margie, over to you.
Okay. First of all, I want to thank Victor for a very sobering wake-up call. Over the last 2 years, my company has gone from providing 55,000 quality jobs to only 30,000 jobs due to both COVID and geopolitics. Now, no matter how hard we try to adhere to the standards that we all share, these are things that is above my pay grade to solve. Recently, I had a friend who said to me, don't look back, look forward. Think about how you're going to create value for the 30,000 people that are still in your employment. And how are you going to fight climate change? Because as we all know, this is the last chance. So let me focus on what I'm now focusing on, which is sustainable development. How are we going to promote human survival as a corporation? As a corporation, we need to, again, trust. I go back to the issue of trust, which is the foundation for all good management. Our company follows lean principles. And in lean, you are taught until you gain trust and respect with the stakeholders, internal and external, you will not be able to implement better, more effective management. This will then lead to better utilization of resource, providing better livelihood for all the people who are employed or in the community, all the stakeholders. On top of that, we have a lot of technology. I believe that technology is the promise of a better life. But so far, we have been seeing a lot of damage that technology has been bringing to society. So at this stage, we're very focused on how to use technology to improve the quality of life and to minimize the footprint on the environment. This is a very exciting time, and this is a very critical transformational time. But I am very hopeful. I am very confident that we, as a human race, together can bring about a better future for the future generations.
Thank you so much, Margie. And you are always very inspirational. And, you know, we talk about food, we talk about what we wear, and now I think we need to talk about travel. And Margie, you mentioned earlier the disruption about geopolitics, about climate and pandemic on your business. So I wonder, Jen, you know, whenever I was thinking of you, I was thinking a lot about travel, happiness, etc. And what all this, you know, crisis or challenges has disrupted your business, and how you are working on coping with these challenges. Jen,
Thank
over
you.
to you.
First of all, thanks so much for having us. I feel a tremendous honor to be able to speak to all of our audience. Travel in a way during this challenging environment is particularly very important to bridge the world because for the past almost 3 years, we have been isolated in our own country, our own city. Now it's time for us to really enhance our bridge, to enhance the international exchange and promote global understanding and global cooperation. So in the past, what we did is adhere to our principle, which is customer first, partner second, and Trip.com the third. By saying customer first, in the past, our customers have been in a very difficult situation in a sense that many cancellation has been made by the airlines, by the hotels, by the local tour operators because of the border closure, because of the control for the pandemic. So what we did is that without asking any questions, we refund our customers 100%. So cumulatively, we have been refunding 100 billion, processed 100 billion refunds for our customers, which win the hearts of our customers. The second thing is to really help our partners who struggle so much during this challenging environment. So we established a partnership fund for 2 billion to help our small and medium-sized partners with their cash flow. We also team up with more than 10 banks to inject about 10 billion cash flow into the ecosystem to make sure the travel industry is preserved. Now, the third is Trip.com, the third. So what we did is that our chairman and I volunteered to take 0 salary, and our VPs volunteered to take 50% cut. And our first line employees still got a raise during this very challenging time. That's the way we believe we can unite the whole team to sustain and weather the storm and to be well prepared when the environment improves. And very fortunately, we have seen a very good recovery in Europe, Singapore, Hong Kong partially, and also Korea, and the United States. So we will work very hard to make sure our technology investment, product investment, service investment will generate a very good fruit going forward. when the border opens, when travel resumes. So I very much love to invite everyone to come and visit us when everything returns normal.
Yes, thank you so much, Jen. We everyone look forward to that day very soon. And we hear the executives, you talk about your own industry, and I wonder for Mr. Fang, your association is one of the biggest in China with thousands of members. And I know that all these members, they have significant footprint, not only in China, but also globally. So what, in your view, can these companies play a very positive role to not only profit, economically, but also make meaningful and positive contribution to the social, environmental development overseas in their massive investments? So over to you, Mr. Fang.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Liu Meng, for having me. And it is indeed my pleasure to join you. As for China International Contractors Association, we call it CINCA. The abbreviation is CINCA. So you are right to say that member companies for sure will every year will come across quite a lot of challenges. And we were conducting around 160 billion US dollars of infrastructure projects every year. So in more than 180 countries and regions in the world. And of course, more than half of the infrastructure projects completed, and they're along the Belt and Road countries. I should say that these challenges are in every aspect in the process of the project construction. But regarding to the biggest sustainability challenge we're facing now, I think it should be how to balance the return of investment of one infrastructure project and its impact to the environment protection. So that is to say, one project developer should attach great importance to the environmental protection throughout the whole life cycle of this project. And meanwhile, they should also take full consideration of the entire investment return by delivering a quality project. So the biggest sustainability challenge is how to maximize the investment return to benefit the economic and social development of the host country, and at the same time, to minimize the impact on the environment. So this balance requires that, and I think first, we must do our best in the environmental impact assessment. So at the very early stage of the development of one infrastructure project. And secondly, it is also very important to fully communicate and consult with all the stakeholders of the project, including the local government, community residents, project owners, investors, etc. So before mobilizing the project, in order to take full consideration of the concerned interests of all parties involved. So only in this way, the project can be built into a sustainable project, which will bring greater economic and social benefits to the host countries. So after the project completion. So let me give you an example. So when China Road and Bridge Company, we built the Mombasa-Nairobi Railway in Kenya. So the railway needs to pass through the Kenya Tsavo National Park, so which is, the paradise of the wild animals. So the company paid great attention to the migration of those wild animals in the park. So they have designed in the park for wild animals in a very thoughtful manner, altogether 9 migration corridors, including 6 animal channels and 3 culverts. So the average height of the bridge pillars is over 6.5 meters, high enough for even the tallest land mammal, the giraffe, to pass through comfortably without lowering their heads. So building sustainable infrastructure is also one of the UN 2030 SDGs. And CINCA will make all our efforts to build sustainable infrastructure projects for the host countries to keep their waters clear and mountains green, as they are as good as mountains of gold and silver. Thank you. Back to you then.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Mr. Pang, for this very lively example of how to care about, the natural systems and environmental protection in overseas projects. Thank you. And, as I mentioned earlier, that if you attend any part of UN Global Compact's event, you will notice that we will try our best to have the most gender balanced discussions, and we perfectly reached the 50-50 and today. And also another very important point, as also emphasized by the UN Secretary General, is that we always need to hear the voice from the next generation, from the young people. So I think among all the speakers, Jason Ho, you are the youngest. You apparently represent the next generation of leaders. So I wonder, do you think you and also young people know well what Sid mentioned earlier, the Sustainable Development Goals? Do you see they are very relevant, and what you guys can do on the Sustainable Development Goals? So over to you, Jason.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Meng. I'm actually getting old as well, so I hope I can represent some of the young people. So let me put it this way. As far as I know, young people such as Generation Z or after, they definitely have more awareness on being more environmental friendly, but not necessarily understanding the details of SDGs yet. As we all know, SDGs actually covers a lot of ground, not only for the environment, but there's on the human side, the healthcare side. So I think most young people as an individual, a lot of what SDGs promotes are fairly difficult for an individual to make a huge impact. But being environmental friendly, this appears to be more important, or at least it's easier to achieve. So let me give a simple example. Uprising and trending brands such as Manner Coffee, which was founded in Shanghai, they actually give $5 off when you bring your own cup to buy coffee, which is almost 20-25% off. So you can see a lot of young people understanding the importance of it, both financially and environmentally. So they would have the awareness on bringing their own cups. So you also can see more young individuals actually would choose brands that promote these kinds of social values as well. They will feel like more attached to those brands. So on the other hand, I think the more obvious trend is you could see a lot more young entrepreneurs adopting to SDGs because they believe employing SDGs in their corporate could make a way bigger impact. So there are two types of entrepreneurs. One is the company itself, they're already using technologies to address the SDGs, such as healthcare, environmental protection products or solutions, or clean energy solutions, etc. So I think these young entrepreneurs actually see the importance of SDGs and believe it would be a good business model to work on. And I think there's another type as well. You can see there are young entrepreneurs actually doing a lot more. Let me give you an example. A company called XAG, a company located in Guangzhou focusing on developing agriculture technologies. I think they actually embedded SDGs in the whole company's DNA. Because of the drone technologies, they actually provide more opportunities for female workers to work in, it used to be a very male-dominant or labor-intensive industry. With their precision technologies, they actually save a lot more water. So they address a lot of problems of the SDGs. So and just look at our own team at Beyond Expo. Most of our employees actually are Generation Z, where we would also think of different ways to reduce waste from a 3 to 4 days event. So these are some trends that I see when a young individual might focus more on how to be environmental friendly. But for SDG per se, the bigger impact would come from young entrepreneurs that are willing to embed SDGs in the company's DNA.
Thank you so much, Jason, for sharing your very important and interesting observations. So this reminded me, Sid, you once to have a very famous saying that United Nations either be a dynamic organization or being dinosaur. So, I think with all these changes, all these challenges, all the new emerging trends coming, so how our organization as a whole can really continue to innovate and really adapt and be welcomed in a new era. So Sid, over to you.
Thank you, Ma'am. Very importantly, in fact, when the UN Secretary General became the Secretary General in 2017, he came with the agenda of change. He came with the agenda of reforming the UN, making the UN fit for purpose, making the UN development system and repositioning it so that it calibrates to the ambitions of a nation state. So I think that is the push with which the Secretary General wants to see the UN fit for purpose. And if you recall, his deputy, Amina Mohammed, often says, for us to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals, we will have to flip the orthodoxy. And that's why I state categorically that for the UN to be relevant, we have to be dynamic, lest we become dinosaurs and be seen in a museum somewhere. So speaking of innovations and changes of the UN to adapt in an evolving world, the organization, when we look at, let's say, the UN Global Compact itself, it is a results-driven United Nations innovative approach initiated by our former Secretary General, Kofi Annan, 22 years ago, when there was a need to bring business and the United Nations together and to give a human face to the global market. Now the UN Global Compact has essentially become a flagship UN enterprise responsible for businesses and the world's largest corporate sustainability initiative, supported by close to 16,000 corporate members from 160 countries. Now, during the past 22 years, when I look at the UN Global Compact, since I have been in the UN for 25, I've seen its birth and I've seen how it has helped the private sector find entry points to UN partnerships and take actions that advance societal goals and the implementation of the Sustainable Development Goals. Meanwhile, it has also helped the UN system to better engage the private sector and mainstream the Global Compact's 10 principles of human rights, labor, environment, and anti-corruption. So the Leaders Summit, therefore, convened today is a good example of precisely that. I go back to my time in Kenya when we brought together 6 companies: Huawei from China, Merck from the US, Philips from the Netherlands, GlaxoSmithKline from the UK, Safaricom from Kenya. They all came together for one purpose. I was then the UNFPA representative, was to reduce the scourge of maternal mortality in the 6th highest burden country. Initiated this in 2014. By 2017, we were able to reduce maternal deaths in those counties by 1/3. Now, this under normal circumstances, under traditional approaches, would have taken 10 to 15 years. So what it shows is the convergence of big data, technology, and innovation, which must be backed up by strong political will at the member states where we are doing it, and certainly robust public policies, and at the same time making partnerships in this big ecosystem really flourish. And therefore, 4 years on since the UN reforms were launched by the UN Secretary General on the development, management, peace and security, it has already started making a huge difference in the way the UN is fit for purpose despite the global challenges and to address the global challenges. Now, since last year, the UN in China has embarked on a new cycle of cooperation with the government of China, which is the United Nations Sustainable Development Cooperation Framework from 2021 to 2025. And this cooperation framework will help China respond to the new opportunities and challenges presented in the 3 strategic areas that we focused on, which is people and prosperity, the planet, and the third area is partnerships. Now, through the cooperation framework, my highest priority as the United Nations resident coordinator in China is to support and sharing of China's experiences, expertise, and resources, and bring those lessons to bear for the benefit of the developing world, especially in Africa, while ensuring alignment with relevant norms and standards. And why do I say this? When China started its development journey in 1979 with the opening up of the economy, what it achieved in 40 years to lift over 750 million people out of abject poverty can now be telescoped essentially in 10 years And why do I say this? In 1979, we did not have access to that kind of technology and innovation that we have today. And therefore, the new enterprise of multilateralism that I see taking shape is going to be public, private sector, the United Nations providing a multilateral platform, states, governments coming together, where we are looking at the transformative agenda and leapfrogging the Sustainable Development Goals. So I'm therefore very glad to know that the UN Global Compact's action platform on sustainable infrastructure for the Belt and Road Initiative to accelerate the SDGs will kickstart the digital sector this year by focusing on the theme of digital for climate to leverage the corporate whole value chain to digital approaches and innovative solutions to address maritime litter, for example, and climate change issues along the Belt and Road Initiative countries. And therefore, I look forward to progress on this action platform and hope more and more of public and private sector stakeholders can join in, particularly as we need all hands on deck in order to accelerate the race towards the SDGs, which is merely 8 years away. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Sid. And I'm also glad to hear you mentioned there are many cases that can be shared as development successes and experiences with the rest of the world from China. And here we have 3 executives from Chinese companies or even global companies. So I'm sure that our audiences want to hear about their experiences and stories. So probably starting from you, Margie. So if you have a global audience that want to learn some of the best practice from your companies, what are the experiences you would like to share?
I would like to share experience relating to eating. And eating is applicable in all companies, especially labor-intensive companies where we have many mouths to feed. So we have been focusing on what we call the Dining 2.0 project. It focuses on wellness. If you eat properly, you will have better health, therefore higher productivity. If you eat well, if you apply the appropriate technology, you can prevent or minimize food waste. We can also use technology to reduce to improve the hygiene, which has been a major concern during the pandemic. We know that during pandemic times, and there will be future pandemics. So how do you minimize the risk of contamination, especially in the preparation of food, serving of food, etc. So this is an area where we have focused a lot on. And we have recently built a campus in Guilin. We deliberately picked Guilin because of its natural beauty. And in that setting, it is much easier to impress upon visitors the importance of preventing the degradation of the environment and also the well-being, how to prepare for a better, healthier life. You can appreciate life better in an environment like that. And so we hope to use this campus to bring other people here and share in our experience and impress upon them. Because in this Dining 2.0 concept, it embeds a lot of lean concepts, a lot of trust. You gain the trust of people when you treat them properly, you feed them properly. And through this process, we hope to get others to join us, because not everybody is in a textile and apparel industry. So what we do in the production floor may not be as applicable, but everybody eats. And we have a lot of diets, which we are promoting. And these are all, and we hope others will also share their best practice. And using this platform, we hope to send a message out better quality employment, fighting climate change, and feeling empowered while maintaining competitiveness of the enterprise.
Thank you so much, Margie. I know the project or the campus you mentioned in Guilin is called the Indigo Garden, right? So we really want to and look forward to visiting the Indigo Garden as soon as possible and really witness how you exercise your philosophy into actions, really to be very helpful, to be very inspirational to your employees and other stakeholders. So thank you so much for that.
We are inspired by the UN Global Compact, and that's why we want to use Integral to promote these goals. Thank you.
Thank you, Margie. And Jen, so what are some of the most impressive experiences you want to share with the rest of the world?
Yes, I would like to share two items. First of all, since I'm the only female CEO in a major high-tech industry in China, we do quite a lot of work to promote female leadership. For example, when a female is pregnant, we offer free taxi to bring them to work and take them home. When the baby is born, we give them 800 as a gift, 3,000 as an education fee. And recently, we saw many females are getting their PhDs. So when they are ready to go to work, I feel some of them are struggling to choose between work or between to have their children, have their family. So instead of giving them lots of pressure, we want to take the pressure away from them. And as a result, more than 50% of our workforce are females, and more than 40% of the middle managers are females, and more than 30% of the executives are females. There is still a long way to go, but I want to really encourage all the female workers and friends to really push yourself out of from your comfort zone and dare to challenge, dare to take on more responsibility and advance in your career. The second thing I would like to share is after the pandemic, we have seen new trends in the travel industry. So there are 4 S in my mind. First of all, the booking window is a small, short booking window. People try to make their reservation with a very short booking window. Secondly, they prefer to travel within much smaller group rather than a bigger group. The third S is more safety driven. Lots of people are paying lots of attention to safety network. So we encourage our partners to pay more attention to safety measures. And the last one is sustainable driven. A lot of young travelers want to travel with more sustainable method. And for the travel packages, we also seen a very interesting trends. For example, lots of people are taking their children, their family, they want to spend more time with their family. So family package are doing very well. Secondly, wellness driven packages are doing very well. The third one is what we called philantourism. So lots of young people want to travel to more remote area with less development. And they use their travel as a way to help the people who live in the remote area. And we call it philanthropy. By using tourism, they are really exercising their influence in the less developed area. So Trip.com is helping the remote area to develop the resorts within these areas. So the farmers can make more money. The females, the mothers can work in their villages while they are cooking meals, offering homestay for the tourism. They can support their family without having to desert their family and go into the metropolitans to do that. And I'm very positive for supporting these kind of efforts in the travel industry.
Thanks a lot, Jen. You clearly show a win-win-win solutions for all the stakeholders involved. Thank you. And I think that now it's Pullman's turn. So Pullman, what's your story you want to share with the world?
So thank you, Mo. Sustainability actually has long been at the heart of our group's DNA and passionately infused in all our corporate initiatives and strategic investments, actually well before ESG has become so prevalent as it is now. An example of our group, Regal, being a pioneer in promoting ESG is when we launched the first carbon neutral hotel called iClub way back in 2010. So as a group, we are required by the SFC to report on our ESG performance. But actually, regardless of regulatory requirements, we have always wanted to be ahead of the ESG curve because we simply believe that it should be a key priority. In terms of risk management, there is a study made by MSCI that companies with poor ESG scores are 3 times more likely than their high-ranking peers to suffer a catastrophic share price loss of 95% over the next 3 years. And we have really seen that, when our company is serious about ESG, we are a lot more able to attract top-notch talent and also to retain them, simply because our employees would be a lot happier and find more fulfillment in their work. And therefore, it boosts loyalty and better performance in the long run. And in terms of ESG consumer trends, we feel that this focus on impact is key to helping us connect to the younger generation. So to stay relevant, we have really tried to enhance our strategy because the millennials, the Generation Z, they are a lot more value conscious when making their daily decisions. So according to Nielsen, 50% of millennials and Gen Z are actually willing to pay at least 10% more, 10% premium for sustainable products. So what we feel that is when a company is able to win the support of our customers for our core brand values, they tend to be more loyal in the long run, even when there are occasional glitches in certain products and service offerings. And similar to consumer trends in general, I think in the hospitality industry, green has really become the new gold. And according to Booking.com, 70% of travelers, especially Gen Z, they are much more willing to pay for eco-friendly accommodation. And what we have seen is that innovation must come from the heart. It must be driven by a genuine concern for customer needs and ESG. So back in 2000, we were the first hotel to offer hotel rooms online. We were also the first to feature mobile key access because we know that these are what our customers want. And 2 weeks ago, we announced Metagreen, which is the first green metropolis on Metaverse. So it is actually a collaborative ecosystem of like-minded partners who share our dream of making this world a better, a greener place. So together we are co-creating a green progressive movement to inspire decarbonization and also behavioral changes in both the consumer and business communities. I myself, I've been a vegetarian for the past 18 years and I'm an animal lover. I have actually 13 poodles, 6 live with me, 6 with my mom, 7 with my mom. And I've always wanted to, because I studied psychology back at university, I've always seen it as my mission to nurture the next generation of wise and compassionate leaders. So that is why I founded the Bodhi Love Foundation, which is a Section 88 charity. And our core program is called SEED. S stands for Social, E, Ethical, E, Emotional Development Program, SEED program. And what we've done is we've delivered an 8-week mindfulness training program to kindergarten teachers so that they can teach the kindness curriculum to students at 100 kindergartens. And likewise, at our hotels, we have, as a complementary perk for guests staying at our hotels for quarantine or community isolation, we have offered free online mindfulness classes to hopefully help support their psychosocial psychological well-being during this time of solitude. And Metagreen Academy, again, is a non-profit initiative under Bodhi Love Foundation. We are in partnership with Hong Kong UST offering a green curriculum to secondary school students to plant a seed of environmental consciousness from a young age. So in the past 10 years, we've made a number of impact investments. Actually, we have done over 40, out of which 18 I would count as very impactful, in that they are in the areas of green tech, agri-food tech, and also fintech for financial inclusion. And what I've been very encouraged to see is that these impact companies actually demonstrate much higher MOIC and IRR than the rest of the portfolio. So that means that these companies are actually more profitable because of the impact, the environmental and social impact that they deliver, rather than in spite of. So contrary to public belief, misconception, I should say, there is no trade-off between impact and profitability. In fact, there should be a positive correlation. So ESG is really not just a risk to be managed, but it should be alpha generating. Which is why I really want to promote the triple bottom line philosophy, that companies should really be returning on people, on planet, and profit. And therefore, all companies should really commit to measuring our social and environmental impact in addition to our financial performance. So we really shouldn't be just solely focused on the traditional profit bottom line. So I'm just very thrilled to see this surge in interest in ESG, and to see that traction and momentum gaining in promoting sustainability around the world.
Thank you so much, Pullman. And while you are speaking, I see also Jen is nodding. So we will make sure that your hotel appears on the search when people log into ctrip.com. Thank you for that again. And Mr. Fang, in fact, we heard about all these China stories from the leading business executives from different sectors. And they're talking about unique experiences based on their journey on sustainability. I was wondering that, well, you have over thousands of members from China, and how your organization is playing a role for these companies to adopt or to be more familiar with the international standards and the best practices.
Okay, thank you again, Ms. Liu Meng. Good question. As China's only national association in international infrastructure cooperation, so we're consisting more than 1,000 Chinese international contractors, as you said. We do attach great importance to support member companies to adopt the international best usual practices and standards. For example, Chinga has released 2 industrial guidelines related to the sustainable infrastructure, and we call them non-binding industrial standards. One is the guideline of sustainable infrastructure for Chinese international contractors, and the other is the guideline of CSR for Chinese international contracting industry. So actually, these 2 guidelines integrated major international standards, including the 10 principles of UN Global Compact, also ISO 26000, IFC Social and Environmental Performance Standard, and SURE standard of the Basel, Global Infrastructure Foundation of Switzerland, and Envision of Harvard University, and a good practice principles for sustainable infrastructure by the UNEP, etc. So based on the 2 guidelines, we have developed appraisal systems and selected best practices to pilot CSR management practices among our member companies. And besides, we also organize a series of sustainable development training programs to promote the latest international sustainability concept and standards, so among our members as well. So I've been working very closely these years with international development agencies such as GIZ of Germany, WWF, UNDP, and Basel Global Infrastructure Foundation to jointly hold industry workshops or forums, seminars, both in China and abroad, to share the knowledge and expertise to improve member companies' capacity in sustainable development. So through all these efforts, CHINCA members' awareness and capacity in sustainable development has been steadily improved over the past decade. So many of our member companies have developed their own internal ESG governing systems with reference to the framework of CHINCA's 2 guidelines. So they also improve the ESG performances through regularly participating in the sustainability themed events hosted by my organization. So I believe that efforts from the business side could never stand alone. So only through joint endeavors from all parties and stakeholders, including international organizations such as the UN, multilateral financial institutions, the financiers, host countries, and so on, so can we achieve the UN SDGs ahead of the time schedule? So over to you then.
Thank you so much, Mr. Fang. And so I want to pass on this question to Jason. So do you think we can achieve the SDGs on time? And is that the reason why you founded Beyond the Expo? So what you are looking beyond? So please, Jason, over to you.
Thank you. I definitely hope that we could achieve it on time. I think a lot of young people would love to live in a better world together. And that's the reason why we built our platform as well. So Beyond Expo is actually aims to be one of the biggest tech events in Asia. We founded this platform in Macau last year, actually with support from SIT as well. And we have more than 500 tech companies, financial institutes, media reps, associations, and government representatives joining us last December in Macau. So our keywords are technology and impact. We believe that technologies are the key to drive impact. And that's something we want to see from the companies that are showcasing the newest technologies. We have companies from different industries, such as healthcare, smart city, infrastructure, alternative energy, new material, food and agriculture companies, etc. We want to raise more awareness on SDGs and also hoping to foster collaboration not only between companies, but also government and different stakeholders in the society to accelerate the achievements of the SDGs. So echoing with our panelists, I think without global collaboration with trust, I think we can't achieve what we wanted to achieve in SDGs. So I hope Beyond Expo can play an important role in it.
Thank you so much, Jason. So Victor, after listening to the perspectives from all the stakeholders, all the speakers, especially those from the private sector, so in your mind, what contribution you think Chinese companies can make to the world for a long-lasting peace and sustainable development?
Thank you, Man. As a member of the United Nations, as a permanent member of the United Nations Security Council, and as the second largest economy in the world today, as the largest trading nation, largest manufacturing nation, you name it, and equally important, if not more importantly, as the largest population in the whole world, China has extraordinary responsibility for world peace and development, as well as promoting the UN SDG goals. Why? Because if we compare China today with China back in 1978, China has achieved a profound transformation for the better. And it is for the better for the Chinese people, as well as for the people throughout the world. I just dream that if China can do this transformation, all the other countries can do, all the countries in the South can do, all the countries which today suffer backwardness, poverty, and deprivation of all kinds, lack of access for the people to enjoy better lives, education, healthcare, and better living standards, you name it. They should be encouraged by the China's success story. China's success is completely due to its hard work, its innovation, its sweat, and its sacrifices, and it is for the better. And I think throughout this process, China has mobilized completely, nationally. No one is left behind. More than 40 years ago, there was no private enterprise at all. By today, private businesses are the largest contributor to job creation, to employment in China, and also in terms of contributing to China's revenue receipts. And in China, we have become a very multilateral society, very multifaceted society. Everyone is very busy. Everyone wants to improve him or herself. All families want to send their kids to a better school. All elderly people want to have a better elderly care services. I think you are talking about the whole nation in great flux. And I truly believe it is a great flux for the better. And if China can do this, if China can keep improving its living standards through peaceful means, it creates all the collateral benefits for all the countries. Allow me to emphasize that all this cannot be done without domestic stability and without international peace. That's why China is being calling for peace in all corners of the world, and it's been calling for stability everywhere and throughout China, because we know for sure, without maintaining stability, without keeping peace, all the efforts for improving living standards of the people will be washed away, and our generations will be wasted. So in this sense, I think, allow me to make a call to the international community to focus on what matters, and that is development. That is development being treated as the hard truth, the soft truth, and the smart truth. It is a growth that will deliver better living standards for all of us. And it is growth on an inclusive basis where all countries, all continents, all civilizations, all countries will need to contribute and benefit. I think any idea of dividing the world into different blocks and dividing countries according to what your values is, as if your value is the universal value and other values or other faiths or other religions, other cultures should not be allowed to coexist. That probably is not the better road. The better road is to include all of us, every country, all faiths, all cultures, all civilizations will be given equal access to growth and development. I truly believe this is probably the true essence of the SDG. I truly believe the world of tomorrow will be multilateral world with equal access and opportunities for all the countries, all the people, everywhere in the world. That will be the world of my dream, and I hope it will be a reality soon.
Thank you, Victor, for all these very, very powerful statements. And really, before we conclude today's session, and all of you make me very convinced that I think walking away from this session, we all now share one common identity, is that everybody of us are peace messengers. So really, if we have that honor of being appointed as the UN Secretary General's peace messenger, so what's the message you want to send to the world? Only in just the one sentence to conclude our session. So lady first. So let me come to Pullman first.
I believe that when the business is driven by purpose, it will be more successful and profitable. Likewise, in life, when we embrace a sense of mission and purpose, it will be the key to sustainable happiness. So let us all join hands And collectively, we can make a difference and help accelerate the transition to a happier net zero world and foster a more sustainable future for all generations to come.
Thank you, Pullman. Over to you, Jan.
For Trip.com, we believe while we are sending people further away, we are bringing the world closer and to promote global peace. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Margie, over to you.
Inspiration for Intergrow at Guilin came from a visit Deng Xiaoping made 40 years ago to Guilin, where he told everybody to preserve the environment for our future generation. It is the inspiration for us to build this garden in honor of sustainable development. And through that, we hope to have peace and prosperity for everyone.
Thank you, Margie. Jason.
SDG shouldn't be just a slogan. We need everyone to work together to make it happen.
Thank you, Mr. Fang.
I think only under the circumstances of the peaceful world that can we construct and build the sustainable infrastructure so that everybody can enjoy. Thank you.
Thank you, Victor.
Thank you. Allow me to remind ourselves that peace is fragile and peace is not carved in stone, and peace deserves to be promoted, to be defended, because in the world of today, if peace is lost, mankind may be lost forever, and the world we are living in may be lost, leaving just an earth revolving eternally around the sun. I hope that will never happen. I hope peace will be defended. We are all messengers of peace, as Meng Yu said. We are all promoters of peace, and we are all defenders of peace.
Thank you, Victor. And we leave the last word and appeal from our UN representative, Mr. Siddharth Chatterjee. Over to you.
I suppose the preamble of the United Nations Education, Scientific and Cultural Organization is most apt to your question. And the preamble says, and I quote, "Since wars begin in the minds of men, it is in the minds of men that the defenses of peace must be constructed." End of quote.
Thank you. With all this spirit, let's unite every country, every business, every stakeholder, and everyone, including you and me, to build bridge, to build trust, to build friendship, and to co-create a world we all want. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Ma'am.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you so
Bye-bye.
much for our speakers.